the number of tweets and then the retweets and those people piling in, dogpiling as you call it, mean there have been something like 5,000 tweets, pretty much referring to raping you or not raping you.
I don't need to contact the police anymore because the police, my local police officers, watch what happens on Twitter and they get in touch with me. Actually, I've got to the stage now where I feel that legal action, be it civil or criminal, in some way is the way to attack these people.
On a quiet bank holiday Monday at the end of May 2016, various media outlets began reporting the news that a member of the UK Parliament had received anywhere between 600 and 5,000 rape threats. This video considers how so many people could possibly get away with sending written rape threats to a member of Parliament without so much as a telling off from their social media provider, let alone a criminal conviction. The reason why no one faced charges over the incident is actually incredibly simple. Because the simple reason is that contrary to virtually every newspaper headline on the matter, Jess Phillips did not actually receive any rape threats whatsoever. But as the saying goes, a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its boots on. Which goes some way to explaining how this fake news headline travelled as far as Australia, and why months later respected journalists like Channel 4 News' Cathy Newman were still reporting the very unlikely tale of an MP being sent over 600 rape threats in one day. In her recent book, even Jess Phillips herself confirms that the truth about the truth behind those sensational headlines is that she received a grand total of no rape threats. But from her perspective, she experienced something just as bad. Thousands of messages about the different way that people from all over the world would not rape her. It is of course illegal to make a credible threat of sexual assault against a person, and Phillips suggests that the men and women who were pledging not to rape her were simply doing so as a wily way to talk about actually raping her without getting arrested.
I mean, their level of discourse is that they're saying that they don't want to rape me, as if raping is something to do that they do to someone they liked. It's a strange, gosh knows where they've got it from. But yeah, it's about 5,000 people, 5,000 notifications or mentions that I've got.
Yeah, and the ones that are saying I wouldn't rape you, and the others that are saying this is not an insult, that they're saying they wouldn't rape you. It's as though you should be grateful somehow for that.
I don't normally, when I'm walking up and down the street, feel the need to say to people, I'm not going to mug you, I'm not going to hit you, because we're normal human beings. But yeah, it's as if I should be thankful that these people are saying that they're not going to rape me.
Now, unlike Phillips, I don't presume to understand the very definite reasons why a relatively small number of people took to Twitter to pledge not to rape a member of Parliament. At least one person did attempt to explain what was going through their head at the time, which offers some useful context.
And I actually hadn't sent her any tweets. I just laughed my ass off when I saw Zargon's video on it. But since it's become such a shitstorm, I thought I'd send a couple. Even if I were into girls, I still wouldn't rape you, Jess. You think people telling you they won't rape you is harassment? I got 10 times as bad when I was 15 and I didn't fall apart. Really not doing much to disprove the myth that women are weaker and more fragile than men. Enjoy trying to censor the net.
Anyone who's paying the slightest bit of attention to this story will know that it came on the back of Phillips's involvement in the very one-sided and censorious Reclaim the Internet campaign, and that Phillips has been extremely inconsistent when it comes to the subject of what should or shouldn't reasonably be considered offensive. To a certain degree, especially outside of a court, offence is determined by the feelings of the recipient as opposed to the intention of the sender. And based on that yardstick alone, it is reasonable to conclude that Jess Phillips did receive tweets that she found offensive. That said, in a diverse society, people will have extremely different offence thresholds. And in a democratic society such as the UK, offending someone is not considered to be a crime. Indeed, despite a relatively brief time in public office, Jess Phillips herself has clearly offended a great number of people on a number of occasions, including many of her own constituents. And anyone reading past the sensationalist headlines will find some clues as to why some people have questioned her own behaviour. Indeed, Phillips's choice of words can be significant and worth unpicking. The tweet from Phillips that triggered the extraordinary headlines involved a very exact form of wording, where she claimed to have received 600 odd notifications talking about her rape in one night. The following day in the BBC interview, this number had increased dramatically. But once again, her language is very exact, stating that she had received around 5,000 notifications or mentions relating to threats, as opposed to 5,000 actual threats. This is significant because anyone who understands Twitter will understand that a user receives a notification most times anything remotely relevant to their account occurs. And yet, once the initial fuss and media scrutiny had died down, this is how Phillips describes the experience in her best-selling book. A twat signal was beamed across the ether, and thousands of messages about the different ways people would not rape me poured in. The feeling was akin to being stood in front of an enormous angry mob, waving burning torches and pitchforks. An analysis of tweets and mentions to Jess Phillips' Twitter account over the period found that significantly less than 100 people actually tweeted Phillips pledging not to rape her. And it appears quite possibly that Phillips has determined her estimate of 5,000 by including every notification received throughout the duration of the incident. And as she herself acknowledges, many of these will actually have been messages of support. Ironically, Phillips's own verbal gymnastics may have inadvertently led her to infer that some of her Labour colleagues and one of her fellow Reclaim the Internet campaigners were actually part of the angry mob waving virtual pitchforks at her. But whatever the exact number of so-called threats, and as in poor taste as those tweets obviously were, it is also something of a stretch to conclude that this was a coordinated attack intended to intimidate her into silence. And it seems dangerously disingenuous of Phillips to claim she received thousands of messages discussing the different way that people would not rape her. The ultimate irony about the entire affair is that the individual whose tweet triggered the incident was specifically commenting on Phillips' own unlikely claims about the level of abuse she receives. Commenting on her claim that she had heroically blocked 700 people in one night for abusive tweets, Carl Benjamin shared the observation that in all likelihood the MP was simply blocking people who disagreed with her politics, and that most of those 700 odd tweets were probably not even rape threats. Hence the comments that he also would not rape the MP. And this is where the story becomes particularly interesting and reveals something about Phillips's own extreme views on the matter of censoring and even criminalising people she doesn't like or agree with politically. Context is everything, obviously, but even though many will consider the tweets childish or offensive, it does seem ridiculous to suggest that the CPS could successfully prosecute anyone for pledging not to rape a Member of Parliament. At the time of the incident, Phillips claimed that the so-called ringleader lived in America, making prosecution difficult. But in her book, she acknowledges the well-known fact that he actually lives in England. His name is Carl Benjamin, and she describes him as her most frequent aggressor and one of the most prolific men's rights dunderheads on the planet. In reality, Carl is actually a well-known full-time YouTube content creator. He runs a channel called Sargon of Akkad, which is devoted to quote-unquote dismantling ideological nonsense. He has 500,000 subscribers on YouTube and 4 times the Twitter following that Phillips has. The so-called dogpiling incident occurred after he featured an article by Phillips in his popular weekly show, This Week in Stupid. To put this in context, approximately 620,000 more people subscribed to Carl's channel than voted for Phillips in the last general election. If I had to recommend one of his videos, it would be his illuminating interview with a veteran human rights activist and founder of the first ever women's refuge. I'll include a link to it in the show notes, along with all sorts of other supporting content. Possibly the most ridiculous but also serious aspect of this story is that Phillips seeks to portray people like Carl as criminals. In her interview with Victoria Derbyshire, she claimed that the West Midlands police monitor her social media accounts closely. So I contacted them and asked them what they made of the incident. Interestingly, the response was a tad ambiguous, stating that they do not monitor individual Twitter accounts, but if an offence has been committed and they are aware or are made aware of the offence, then like any other crime, they will take action. So it does seem possible that despite loudly discussing the incident with various media outlets at the time, Phillips never got round to talking to her local constabulary about those thousands of rape threats. But with breathtaking proportions of irony, and in the very same week, Phillips was paid to appear on a BBC comedy panel where she revealed that some idiot had wasted valuable police time by claiming that she herself had been making death threats.
I want to stab him in the front so I can see the expression of his face.
In my defence, before you say it, I didn't ever threaten to stab my leader, although the Metropolitan Police were called on me twice.
Were they? What did
because
you
it
do?
seems that people online can't understand a metaphor, and I've had the police called on me.
What category are you in then?
I was just second from hostile, penultimate hostile.
Right, what's that called?
Core group negative.
Core
Group
group
negative. Yeah.
Sounds like a disease.
I wonder where on earth they got their idea from. If you're wondering how on earth so many newspapers could get their headlines so wrong, I'll be looking at that in a later episode of The Glass Blind Spot. First, next week, I'll be taking a closer look at the first incident that brought Jess Phillips's infamy, they've all got an infamy style of politics to wider attention. If you want to subscribe and come back next week, you'd be very welcome. This week I thought I'd let Sargon of Akkad have the last word. Here's a not entirely irrelevant observation that he made last week about a Tory pledge in their election manifesto.
Senior Tories have confirmed to BuzzFeed News that the phrasing indicates the government intends to introduce huge restrictions on what people can post, share and publish online. Just like to give a big shout out to all of the petulant left-wing activists who spent the last 10 years complaining to the government that they want more done about people disagreeing with them on the internet. Looks like you're going to get your wish. However, it's going to be power that's wielded by a right-wing government that has no sympathy for your ideological position, and so I just want to say, when you start getting censored, I'll be there to complain that you're getting censored. I will definitely speak in your corner, but I'm certainly going to start by saying, I fucking told you so.
Can't you see it too? There's an elephant in the room.